Hello and welcome to Flawless Invisible Zips. I'm Alison from Bag Lady Bird Learn to Sew, and I'm here to show you the best technique to get flawless invisible zips every time. So if you're not sure what an invisible zip looks like, this is a invisible zip. So there is no stitching on the right side of the fabric, on the right side of the garment. You don't see any stitching. You only see the zip pull at the top and no stitching, so it just looks like a seam. In this sample I have used contrasting zip, but you would use the zip as close to the colour of your fabric as you can, and it would just absolutely blend in with the seam. You wouldn't even notice it was there. So an invisible zip looks slightly different to a regular zip when you are buying these in the shops or online. So an invisible zip, also known as a concealed zip, just has the little zip pull at the top, no teeth on the front, and the teeth are on the reverse side of the zip. So the back of the zip has the teeth raised on it and the front of it is flat apart from the zip pull. In contrast, nearly lost it then. A regular zip looks like this. So your teeth are on the front, the teeth are raised on the front of the zip pull is on the front of the zip as well, and it's a slightly larger pull. The back of the zip is the flattest side, so that is the difference between a regular zip and a invisible or concealed zip. So the tools you will need for today to sew an invisible zip is a invisible zip foot. So they look like this. On the reverse side, you have two little grooves which the teeth of the zip slide under, and that is what helps you get a really good invisible zip. So if your needle position will move to the left or to the right on your machine, then this is the type of foot you will need. If it doesn't, you will need to have an adjustable zip foot. An adjustable zip foot is slightly different. It means the needle can stay in the same place and the zip foot will adjust from side to side to allow you to get in as close to the teeth as possible, and that is the key to getting a really great invisible zip. So a pattern will usually tell you what length of zip you need, and it'll have a notch to indicate where the zip will finish, the end of the zip closure. I always purchase a zip at least a couple of inches longer than you need. For this technique, it makes it much easier to have that extra length at the end. You can always shorten a too long zip, and I always keep longer zips in my stash anyway, so you can always shorten it. So I will keep the longer zips and shorten as required. Remember, you can print out the Flawless Invisible Zips step-by-step instructions to follow along with this video. Okay, so you've got your zip and your fabric, your garment, and you've got all your regular sewing equipment. There's just a few other things you'll need to make sure that you've got to make your flawless invisible zip. So the first of those is either an invisible zip foot or an adjustable zip foot. If your sewing machine needle position will move from the left to the right, then an invisible zip foot is perfect. If your needle is at a fixed position, you can't adjust it, then you'll want the adjustable zip foot. You will also need an unpicker, a really sharp one, and something to measure with. So in this illustration I've got a seam gauge. You'll need something to mark with, so I've got a friction pen here, but you can use chalk or any other fabric marker. And you'll want some wash away quilter's tape, also known as Wonder tape. And that's a double-sided tape that sticks to your fabric and doesn't goo up your needle, and it will wash away whenever you wash your clothes. The key to making a zip truly invisible is getting your stitching really close to the teeth. So if we open this zip up here, and if I just show you, so at the minute the teeth are rolled, so they're folded back onto the zip tape, to the wrong side, to the back of the zip tape, like so. What we need to do is open that out to allow us to get the needle in and the stitches in really close to the teeth, helping ensure that you don't see any of the stitches on the you don't see any of the zip tape on the right side of your garment. So you're getting your stitches really close in. So the way to do this is to press your zip, to iron your zip, and to turn the teeth out. So we'll keep the zip open. You want your iron on a relatively hot temperature. I've got this on 3 dots. I usually just iron the ironing board to take a bit of the standing heat out of the iron. And then I, using the tip, just press with my finger and slide the zip along, pushing the teeth outwards. Oh, steamy. So what you should get is your teeth sitting flat away from the tape. So it's no longer folded over like that, it is folded back out that way. So if you look at these two in comparison, this is the one that I haven't done here, and this is the one that I have done. You can see the difference there. So I will just do the same on the other one. So I always start at the open end. I use my fingers just to roll those teeth outwards and just use the tip of the iron, slide it along and keep the iron moving. Move it back the opposite direction and then just wait for it to cool for a few minutes, few seconds, and then zip your zip up. You will know if you have done this stage correctly when your zip folds in half like so. A word of caution when ironing your zip, just take care to keep your iron moving and do it relatively quickly. You don't want to melt your zip teeth. Having said that, I have been teaching this method since I first began teaching, and I'm the only person who's ever melted the teeth. None of my students have ever melted the teeth, just me, but do take care. So we've got a beautifully pressed open seam here, and just double check the reverse side or the correct side, the right side, that your seam is sitting nice and flat and open as well. You don't want any bumps or creases pressed into that. You want it to sit nice and flat and even. So we're just going to use measuring tool and just measure on the zip, on the seam allowance. We're going to measure 1.5 centimeters from the top of the opening at the back, so the top edge of the back. So we're just going to draw a line. You would be doing this with the friction pen. I'm doing it with a biro just so it doesn't disappear as I'm ironing various different parts. And then the next bit, we'll need to draw your line at your notch at the bottom where the seam changes from a longer stitch length to your 2.5 stitch length. So we've just got those two markings, one there and one there, and we want to put the corresponding markings onto the zip. So lay the zip on top of the fabric, and your top marking, the marking that you've just marked at the top, 1.5 centimeters from the top edge, that will meet with the top edge of the zip. So if I just show you that there, so you're looking at lining that marker up with the top edge of the zip, and then you want to just lay your zip flat along that, along your seam, and then you want to mark the zip tape on the wrong side of the zip, so the side with the teeth, you want to mark that level with the lower marking, so the marking where your notch is, where your zip is going to end. On the right side of the garment, so that's the same place as your stitches change from 4 to 2.5. This is where the crucial double-sided quilter's tape or wonder tape comes in. So what we're going to do, instead of using pins or tacking stitches to secure the zip tape to the seam allowance, we're going to use the double-sided quilter's tape. So you want to use the tape and you want to stick it first of all to one side of the seam allowance from the top edge down to your lower marking where the notch is, where your zip is going to end, and then just cut that there. So you want it to finish right on the lower marker where you've drawn that on. And then you want to stick another piece parallel to it on the other seam allowance. So you've got 2 pieces of the double-sided sticky tape. So we've got the backing is on there at the moment, which we'll need to peel off. So that's nicely stuck on there, the double-sided quilter's tape. It's a little tricky for you to see because the tape is white, the backing on the tape is white, but what I'm going to do now is just peel off the backing tape and leave the sticky bit on the seam allowance. So do that on both sides. Now you could pin and tack if you don't have the double-sided quilter's tape, but it makes life so much easier to have this wonder tape. So I would recommend getting some of that to insert your invisible zips. It has so many other purposes as well. Can just be used as a quick fix instead of basting, and it is repositionable as well. So if you don't stick it on correctly the first time, then what you can do is reposition. So I'm going to turn this so that the top is towards me. So moving it too far away, that's it. So the top is towards me, and this is the hem edge here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with my lower markers on the zip and the lower markers on here. So I'm going to line that up on there with that, like so. And it's important here to have it facing towards you because you want to line the center of the zip up with the seam line on the zip tape. So I just slowly towards me roll this up and just stick the zip tape to the seam allowance with the quilter's tape. So just take it nice and slowly, work your way up. It's really important that you get your seam allowance really flat and that everything sits nice and even. Roll it up, just roll it gently and stick each section as you go. So if you were using pins and basting, you'd want to make sure that you were only stitching your zip tape to the seam allowance. You're not stitching through all the layers. That is what makes an invisible zip invisible, is that you only stitch to the seam allowance. So we've got that on there, nice and even, nice and central and well stuck. Always do this section in one go. You don't want to stop and then have to go back to it because in time it becomes a little bit less sticky. There's the quilter's tape, the wash away quilter's tape will wash away when you wash your garment, so there won't be any stickiness or residue left on there, but it'll stick nice and firm for as long as you need it to sew, but just do it in one go. Don't try and break off and do it at another point. When you're sticking the top to the seam allowance, the top of the zip to the seam allowance, ensure that the zip pull is pointing up and out. You want to be able to get that. You don't want it to be stuck to the tape or stuck to the zip in any way, so it's sticking upwards. Now that the zip is stuck in place, what we need to do is remove these longer stitches above our notch marker where the zip is. So just with your unpicker, make sure your unpicker is nice and sharp. Just fold it over so you can just break every third or fourth stitch with the sharp U-shaped bit of your unpicker. Break these stitches on one side. So you just wanting to do this really gently. You don't want to pull or damage anything as you're unpicking. It's much better to do it one side at a time, because you don't want any little bits of thread left in your zip to catch in your zip. So you're making sure you're removing every single part of the thread. So once you've unpicked one side, what you should be able to do is just pull the end, move this so you can see it, and just pull that out, and it should naturally unpick right down to the bottom where your shorter stitch length starts, and that's where you have unpicked on the other side. So I'm just removing all the little tiny bits of thread, making sure you don't leave anything left over. So when you check, both sides should be free from threads. So now if you flip it over and look at the right side, if you gently pull it apart, you can see your zip. So this is the important part. You want to just grab your zip pull, holding on to the top, and just unzip your zip. Now, just before your stitching on your seam starts, what you want to do is gently just poke the zip pull through that last bit of the opening, through there, and then just pull your zip down from there. And at this point, just make sure your tape is still stuck nice and firmly. We don't want it to come away. So we've unzipped the zip right to the bottom, and this is where your extra 2 inches comes in. To attach the zip foot, I am going to remove the existing foot, so just press the button on the back of the foot and it will release your regular foot. So taking that one off, and we're putting this one on. So always remember that this little hole at the front is where the needle goes through. So you need to make sure that the clip-on bar sits behind the needle. So place the foot in position. I like to grab it by finger and thumb from front and back, and then lower the lever down on top of it. Having the finger and thumb there just means you can wiggle it about, just get your little bit of adjustment that you need to get it in the correct position. Now, once your foot, invisible zip foot, is on, what we want to do is make sure that this top thread here is coming from below the presser foot. So to get that into position, hold your lower thread, so the bobbin thread, and just turn the hand wheel for 1 full revolution. So your needle's back in the upright position again, and then just swipe your scissors or something else long and pointy underneath the presser foot, underneath the zip foot, so that now your upper thread is coming from below the presser foot. Just helps you start off neatly when you start sewing, and then move your threads around to the back. So I'm just going to grab my zip here where I've got the zip foot, the zip unzipped, and what we're going to do is we're just going to have a look at each side at a time. So you want to flip open the seam allowance so that the fabric lays flat and your zip is on top of that. So when we're looking at this particular side of the zip, we will be placing the teeth of the zip in the right hand groove under the presser foot. So I will find their position. So it's in the right hand groove. Now, if I was to put my needle down as it is now, we would hit the teeth of the zip. And if you hit the teeth of the zip, what will happen is your zip will not zip up and down if you've sewed over your teeth. So we need to move the needle position to allow for this. So on this machine, the dial to change your needle position is this one here on the top. And we just want to move it. It's somewhere between 1 and 1.5. So I'm going to check that, bring the needle down and check where that position is. That is just a little bit far away. So I'm just going to turn it a little bit that way. So that moves the needle slightly to the right and brings it down nice and close. So I've started, if the back of the foot is level with the top of the fabric, I want to make sure where the needle goes down, we're definitely on the teeth part and not on the floppy part of the zip at the back at the top. So stitch length 2.5. I'm going to now reverse back. So this reversing back gives us another little extra check, because we can see then that our stitches are in the correct place. So you can see that the stitches are right in the groove there. And then we'll come forward again. And you're just slowly coming forward. And your teeth should sit upright in the groove under the zip foot. And we're coming down. Just take your time, nice and slow. All the way down to finish where your marker is at the bottom edge. So when we get to where the marker is, we're just going to do 2 or 3 stitches in reverse to secure that. Lift the presser foot, lift the needle, pull your work out from under the machine and cut your threads. Make sure you cut in nice and close. Like I said, you don't want any threads to be loose to get caught up in the stitching. So there you go. You can see that the stitches are nice and close to the teeth. They want to be in the groove right next to the teeth. And that is side 1 completed. So we're now ready to sew the second side, and it doesn't matter which order you sew your zip, each side of your zip in. So this time you're opening out so the fabric is flat and your seam allowance is flat and your zip is on the top, and you're placing it into the left hand groove this time and making sure it sits nicely in position. So the position of the needle is slightly different for the other side. Always make sure you adjust your needle with your needle in the top position, and it's just a little smidge, but you want that nice and close. So needle down to start with, and then reverse back to the beginning. And you can see that your stitches are going to fall in the right place, nice and close to that zip teeth in that groove. If you were to hit the teeth as you were sewing, stop, take your fabric away from the machine, undo it, cut it, unpick those few stitches where you've hit the zip teeth, and then come back and pick up where you left off. It's better to do that than to have to go back and unpick the whole zip. You will usually tell if you hit the zip teeth because it makes a clunk, clunk, clunk noise instead of the nice smooth noise that it would normally make. So just need to make sure when you come down to this bottom bit that you're rolling your already stitched teeth as far out of the way as you can. And we're coming down, we're going to sew to the same point where you've marked your zip tape. And we're just rolling that away, allowing this to come down and finish on your marker. Few stitches in reverse, lift your presser foot, make sure your needle's in the top position and snip your threads nice and close. So now we have a zip sewn in on both sides, but no zip pull. The zip pull is underneath here, like so. It's really easy to finish this off. So all you need to do is just zip this up from this side. So from the wrong side of the zip, grab your zip pull and pull it all the way to the top, and there we have our beautiful invisible zip. So it will unzip as far as your marking there, it won't go beyond that, and then you can zip it up again. So you do have an extra couple of inches here at the bottom of the zip. You can finish that off by doing a couple of stitches back and forth over the zip tape and chop it off, or you can chop it off and you can put a bit of fabric over the end to stop the rough bits on the bottom of the zip. I tend to just leave them as they are. They're not doing any harm by being there and being a couple of inches longer. If you find it tickles you or it bothers you, then you can cut it off and finish it. But all that remains to be done is to just give that one last quick press, and that is our beautiful finished invisible visible zip. And here we have the completed pressed invisible zip. So as you can see, the zip, it just looks like part of the seam. We can see the zip pull, and the zip will move freely up and down as required. You would attach your waistband or facing to the top above the zip pull, and there we have it, a lovely invisible zip. So I hope you found this really useful. Don't forget to print out and refer to the printable step-by-step instructions as well. And if you have any questions, please do ask in the comments below. Don't forget there will be a live Q&A at some point this month, so look out for that on Patreon. Okay, bye bye.